On the 28th of February 2020, the Republic of Cyprus announced it was suspending the operation of 4 crossing points between the two sides of the divided island. The reason given was the need for effective management of the COVID-19 pandemic. By that time, no restrictions had been imposed on arrivals by air or sea, and by then, there had been no recorded cases of COVID-19 on the island. In the following days, the authorities on both sides entered a tactical game of measures and restrictions. Eventually, they announced the closure of all crossings 17 years after they were first opened. The line splitting Cyprus in two became a rigid barrier, rupturing contact between the people of the island.
Δεν υπάρχει ιός που θα το σταματήσει το σειρματόπλευμα. Δεν υπάρχει ιός που θα προτιμήσει τη μιαν ή την άλλη θρησκεία ή τη μιαν ή την άλλη πλευρά της Κύπρου.
A few weeks later, the first COVID-19 cases were reported in Cyprus, both north and south of the buffer zone. March 2020, full lockdown. Across and within communities, life was put on hold, much like everywhere else. Warmer days brought suffocating stillness. Nothing moved, nothing changed. For the next few months, the regulations made crossing complicated, psychologically exhausting, and at times impossible. This affected people's access to education, healthcare, their jobs and families. More than 1,500 Turkish Cypriots work in the areas controlled by the Republic. Unofficially, the number is closer to 4,000.
İsmim Gürcan Osman Baba. Gönyeli'de doğdum, büyüdüm. 2003 yılında Mayıs'ta başladım ben bu şirkete. Güney Kıbrıs'ta çalışırım. Bizim kuzeyde bilirsiniz krizler oldu, devülasyonlar oldu. Gerçekten iş bulmak zor. İş bulsanız da zaten geçinmeniz çok büyük bir sıkıntıydı. Kapıya gittiğimiz zaman gece karar alınmış. Geçişler durduruldu dediler. Giderseniz döndüğünüzde karantinaya alınacaksınız. Döndük, evimize geldik. Tabii akşama daha farklı haberler çıkmaya başladı. Kapanma süresi uzadı. Bu 1 hafta, 2 hafta oldu, 3 hafta oldu, 5 hafta oldu. Ve günler birbirini kovalarken Mayıs'a geldik. Mayıs'ın ortasına kadar hiç maaş almadık biz. Hatta yapılan bazı hatalardan dolayı oradan bize Covid maaşı çıkacaktı. Bu da çıkanlara dahi ulaşamadı. Bu pandemiden dolayı ortalama 350-400 arkadaşımız şu anda işsizdi. Öyle bir şey yoktu. Yani insanlık dışı hasta gibi, temaslı gibi, tamam hastalık, temaslılık kötü bir şey değil. Ama yani hasta temaslıysan farklı bir prosedür uygulanır. Ama benim gibi ekmeğinin peşinde koşturan bir insanı hapsedersen
The Turkish Cypriot authorities allowed workers to cross to the south, but only if they remained in quarantine following their return to the north. To continue working, many took the decision to quarantine, away from their families and homes. The Maronite community, one of the largest religious groups in Cyprus. Displaced from their homes in the north of the buffer zone, many Maronites sought a new life on the southern side of the divide. It is estimated that around 6,000 Maronites now live dispersed within the Greek Cypriot community. The closure of the crossings added another layer of difficulty in their daily lives too, the disruption of contact within the families divided between north and south.
To combat the coronavirus, but at the end of the month, Nikos Anastasiadis announced the closure of 4 of the 7 crossing points without consulting.
Έπρεπε να είχε γίνει ειδική διευθέτηση. Δεν μιλούμε τώρα ούτε για τουρισμό, δεν μιλούμε ούτε για οικονομικούς λόγους, συμφεροντολογικούς, μιλούμε για λόγους επιβίωσης αυτών των ατόμων που έχουν οικογένειες μοιρασμένες στις δύο πλευρές. Αυτά τα θέματα είναι καθαρά ανθρωπιστικά. Έπρεπε να τα δούμε με αυτόν τον τρόπο και όχι να τα αντιμετωπίζουμε ως πίεση για άλλους λόγους.
Κάμε λίγο πίσω να φαίνεται όλο το πρόσωπο σου. Να φαίνεται το πρόσωπο σου όλο μες στο τάμπλετ. Έτσι μπράβο. Για να δούμε πόσο όμορφη είσαι.
Σε 3 εβδομάδες να αναλύει το δεύτερο. Αλλά εμείς δεν τελειώσαμε.
Πρέπει να έρθουν τα παιδιά μας. Δίχως άλλον πρέπει να προσπαθήσουμε να έρθουν τα παιδιά μας, έστω και ένας κάθε Κυριακή, κάθε Νάτ και να... Έχουμε πρόβλημα, ένας να μας πάρει γιατρό. Επιτρέπεται να μην έχουμε ένα αυτοκίνητο να πάμε στον γιατρό. Ποιος να μας πάρει. Είναι η αρρώστια που φταίει, αλλά πάλι αφού κάνουν το τεστ με τις μάσκες, με τα...
Πριν είχαμε πρόβλημα, πριν το κορονοϊό είχαμε πρόβλημα. Αφήνε μας υπέναμε.
Όχι, πριν είμαστε μια χαρά. Όταν θέλαμε να πιέναμε.
Ήταν καλά που πριν. Έρχονταν τα παιδιά μας.
Σαν έκοψε το γιος μου τα κάτω, ευτυχώς.
Ευτυχώς έκοψε ο γιος σου, η μαμά σου δεν έκοψε κανένα. Ο άντρας μου είχε καρκίνο. 18 χρόνια πιέναμε στο ογκολογικό. Κάθε 3 μήνες. Παρακούσαν το λέει εντάξει. Όταν έκοψα μετά μέσα καιρό πολύ, ψήλωσε το PSA του πολλά. Πέθανε.
Μια Κυπρού ατόση και ο κυβερνήσεις και δεν μπορούν να κομμαντάρουν. Και κύριε Χαΐρη, μια Κυπρού ατόση και ο κυβερνήσεις, μια από εκεί και μια από εδώ.
In the months following the lockdown, Maronites were permitted to cross after special arrangements had been made. The movement of the body, monitored, policed, for many echoed unpleasant memories from the past. Cyprus, an island in the Mediterranean, split in two. The starting point of the division changes depending on who you ask. So do the perpetrators, and so do the victims. Many grow up to only know half of it. For thousands, the other half is a blank canvas when pictured in books, on maps, or in news reports. With the opening of the crossings in 2003, we could begin filling in the canvas for ourselves, if we chose to. Since then, hundreds of thousands of people have visited the other side. 18 years after, many have built their lives around the new possibilities this has created. Yet the new rupture brought big moments with it. For the first time in years, thousands of people demonstrated together for peace and unity. And while my friends were walking down the streets of Lefkosia, I was in Lefkosia, on parallel paths, divided, yet demanding to get together.
Το 2003 τον Απρίλιο ανοίξαν τα οδοφράγματα. Αυτόν άλλαξε τη ζωή μας σχεδόν ολοκληρωτικά. Ήταν σαν να ήβρα το άλλο μου μισόν. Σε 2 τάξεις στο English School όπου εφήτησα σαν έφηβος, είχα 2 Τουρκοκύπριους συμμαθητές. Και σιγά σιγά δημιουργήθηκε τούτη η παρέα, η οποία εδώ και περίπου 17 χρόνια βρέθεται κάθε Σάββατο και έχουμε συνδεθεί από κάθε άποψη, δηλαδή πνευματικά, οικογενειακά και στα καλά μας και στα κακά μας. Έχουμε δει παιδιά να παντρεύκονται, εγγονάκια να γεννιούνται. Εξαφνικά ήρθε τούτη η πανδημία να μας το κόψει και ελπίζω, πραγματικά ελπίζω, ό,τι και αν γίνει με το κυπριακό πρόβλημα, το οποίο δυστυχώς δεν πάει καλά, τουλάχιστον να έχουμε την ελευθερία να απολαμβάνουμε όλοι μας τη χώρα. Εκαταντήσαμε εκείνοι που θέλουν την ειρήνη και την αλληλοκατανόηση να θεωρούνται προδότες μέσα στη χώρα τους.
Çünkü Andreas'la tanışmam İngiliz okulundaki arkadaşlarını ararken oldu. Ve benim de İngiliz okulu mezunu olmam bizi birbirimize yakınlaştırdı. Tamam, lisanlarımız farklı olabilir ama belli bir Kıbrıs kültürü vardır. Ve bu Kıbrıs kültürü Türkler ve Rumlar için de aynıdır. Yani ben diyebilirim ki bu kültür, Kıbrıs kültürü, Rumların Yunanistan'la olan kültürlerinden veya Kıbrıslı Türklerin Türkiye'ye olan kültürlerinden daha farklıdır ve daha yakındır. Pandemi sonrası dünya düzeni değişiyor. İnşallah daha uzun sürmez. Çünkü günde bayağı, bendeyim 5.000, 6.000 bilmiyorum tam rakamı ama büyük miktarda turist ve Rum geliyordu bölgeye. Dolayısıyla bütün esnaf da onların yapacağı alışveriş üzerine kurulmuştu düzenleri. Bu kapanınca kapı, esnaf bayağı zorda. Bütün dükkanlar açıktı. Şu anda bakınız, bütün dükkanlar kapalı, açmıyorlar. Çünkü gelen yok.
A year since the closure, and life moves on, separately.
I'm happy to live and work on the different parts, and living in the south and working in the north. For me, it just means that I have a wider kind of view of Cyprus. Nicosia is the only town in Cyprus that we share. That we share as all the communities of Cyprus. The crossing here is right in the middle of town. We see each other every day. Apart from when the crossings were closed, but we didn't believe at the time that they had a legitimate reason for closing the crossing. I think the airports were still open. There were no other restrictions being made. It was just the crossing being closed. There are always political things happening here, and there are always reasons why the government can say that they're restricting crossings. I understand that, I appreciate that, but our lives kind of depend on this. It's bad enough that we now have a government in the north that has taken our politics back to the 1990s. It was even worse when the crossing was closed because it felt like we were living in the 1990s at a time. In the 90s, we didn't have any crossings. We couldn't mix with Greek Cypriots. I didn't know any Greek Cypriots at that time. The Greek Cypriots I know these relationships have materialized because of the crossings.
Γίνεται ένα νησί, πόσος κόσμος είμαστε και δεν μπορούσαμε να τον ελέγξουμε, βαστούριαν. Δυνατότητες μηδέν. Τι να πω, κάνουμε πατσαρίσματα. Μπαίνεις κύριε, μάλιστα, θέλω να έχεις το PCR σου, 72 ώρες πριν να τα ταξιδέψεις, θα γίνεσαι για μένα όπως που γεμώσαν τώρα rapid της τελεία που καθένας κυβερνήσεις. Πάντα αρκούμαστε πίσω από τα γεγονότα. Πάντα. Θα στους να πουλάλους. Ευκαιρνούν μες τηλεοράσεις και κάνουν όλοι που κάνουν να τα λύσουν το Κυπριακό. Όλοι με κρεβάτα το πρωί που η ώρα 7.30-8 στην τηλεόραση να λύσουν το Κυπριακό.
I'm originally from the UK. I'm as I call a British Cypriot. My father is from Famagusta and my mother is from Paphos. Well, she was, but living in a place like London for all your life and suddenly coming to such a small place like Cyprus, and particularly a divided Cyprus, it was extremely difficult in the first year. The closure of the checkpoints obviously happened as soon as the pandemic hit us. It was a very frightening experience, I think, on the whole, because, there is this thing about, because the North is unrecognized, there is this psychology of isolation anyway. And I think when the checkpoints closed, that was like another kind of layer on top. And also because, I have a child who I cross with every day. She's also been affected by it. She constantly asks me, why do we have to show our passports, or why do we have to show our identification cards? Why do we have to keep getting tested? Why do we have to have this border in the same city that we live in just to go to school? Okay, she's quite inquisitive, thankfully. But she's 6 or 7 and she's already thinking about these things. Why can't I move freely? So if our children are normalizing it, then, it means that the next generation is being poisoned, sadly.
Spun away, we were floating, layer upon layer of dust, Where do we land? Where do we stand? Tracing our steps, our bodies moving. Yet, staying still in this in-between. It makes my stomach sink and rise to my throat. I trace my steps in this empty canvas, each footprint a mark of my existence, carried away by the wind. What if it ends with our shirts buttoned up the wrong way? What if it ends while we wait?